Echoes After the Crime, Part 1. The sirens had stopped, but the noise hadn't. It lingered in the walls, in the broken glass scattered like frost across the pavement, in the shallow grooves left by hurried boots. Even after the police tape fluttered into place and the crowd was pushed back, the street refused to be quiet. It breathed, remembering. By dawn, the building looked ordinary again. Brick facade, cracked windows, a rusted fire escape clinging to its side like a bad memory. But inside, the air was heavy, the kind that presses against your chest and tells you something irreversible has happened. Detective Mara Kincaid stood just beyond the threshold, notebook unopened. She had learned long ago that the first thing you feel at a crime scene matters more than the first thing you see. Facts come later. Echoes come first. A coffee mug lay on its side near the sink, its contents dried into a dark ring. A radio on the counter was still tuned to a late-night station, the host's voice long gone but the volume left low, as if someone had meant to come back. A chair was pulled out, not knocked over, no struggle here, at least not at the start. Victim's name is Jonah Reed, an officer said softly behind her. 36. Local journalist. Journalist. Mara felt the word settle uneasily. Jonah Reed had been asking questions. About money that disappeared, about a redevelopment project that never added up, about people who preferred silence. His last article had gone live 3 days ago. He hadn't published anything since. There were no signs of forced entry, no weapon left behind, just a single bullet casing near the back door, cleaned once too often to erase fingerprints that might have been there. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, or knew enough. Mara finally opened her notebook. Outside, the city was waking up. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued, unaware that something had fractured just a few steps away. That was always the strangest part, not the death itself, but how little the world paused for it. As she turned to leave, Mara noticed something taped to the inside of the door frame, half hidden where only someone standing inside would see it. A scrap of paper. Handwritten. "You can't bury sound." Mara stared at the words, feeling the truth of them hum in her bones. The crime was over, but its echoes were just beginning. Echoes After the Crime, Part 2. The newsroom smelled like old paper and cold coffee, the scent of unfinished stories. Mara signed in and let her eyes adjust to the dim light. Most of the desks were empty now. Budget cuts had hollowed the place out. But Jonah Reed's corner still looked alive. Too alive. His jacket hung on the back of the chair. Sticky notes climbed the edge of his monitor like bright warnings no one had answered in time. She didn't touch anything at first. She listened. Every room that holds truth hums differently. This one buzzed with urgency, with half-spoken thoughts that never made it to print. Jonah's computer had been wiped clean. No drafts. No browser history. A professional job, but professionals make mistakes when they rush, and Jonah had been running out of time. Mara opened a drawer. Inside, a small digital recorder scuffed at the edges. The battery was dead, but the red light flickered when she plugged it in. A voice crackled to life. "If anything happens to me, it's not random. Follow the permits. Follow the sound." Mara's jaw tightened. The permits. Construction. Redevelopment. The city's favorite excuse for moving people without leaving fingerprints. Jonah's last article suddenly felt less like an ending and more like a warning that had been ignored. She scrolled through his handwritten notes next. Addresses, dates, initials circled again and again. One name appeared more than the others. E. Calder. Back at the precinct, the name pulled a file from records older than Mara's badge. Elias Calder, urban development consultant. Clean public image. Private contracts sealed tight. Every project he touched came with complaints. Noise violations, unexplained relocations, sudden fires blamed on faulty wiring. Always noise. Always dismissed. That night, Mara stood on her apartment balcony, city lights trembling below. She replayed Jonah's message in her head. Follow the sound. Sirens wailed somewhere far off. A train rumbled beneath the streets. The city was never quiet. Maybe that was the point. Truth didn't disappear. It just got drowned out. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Stop digging. Mara didn't reply. She turned the phone face down and listened harder. Because whoever was trying to silence the past didn't understand one thing. Echoes grow louder when you pretend they aren't there. And somewhere in the city, the sound Jonah had followed was still reverberating, waiting for someone brave enough to trace it back to its source. Is this conversation helpful so far? Top of form. Bottom of form. Echoes after the crime, Part 3. The construction site was quiet in a way that felt wrong. No engines, no shouting foremen, just the hollow frame of a future building rising against the night, wrapped in scaffolding like bandages over a wound that hadn't healed. A temporary shutdown, the city claimed. Noise complaints. Safety reviews. Mara stepped past the warning signs and ducked under the loose fencing. Her flashlight beam cut through dust and unfinished concrete, catching on footprints that didn't belong to any official inspection team. Follow the sound. She stopped walking and listened. At first, there was nothing. Then, faint but steady, a low vibration beneath her feet. Not loud enough to register as noise. Just a persistent hum, like something mechanical refusing to sleep. Mara traced it to a sealed access door in the basement level. The lock was new. Too new for a site on pause. Inside, the air smelled metallic and damp. Cables ran along the walls, feeding into equipment that didn't belong on any public construction plan. Sound-dampening panels lined the room, thick and deliberate. This wasn't about building. This was about hiding. A folder lay on a makeshift table. No labels. Inside were permits stamped and approved, fast-tracked, signed by officials who'd publicly denied involvement. Each document referenced infrastructure testing. Each address matched neighborhoods Jonah had circled in his notes. Displacement disguised as development. The hum deepened suddenly. Machines came alive. Mara's phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. Last warning. Leave. Before she could react, footsteps echoed above her. Too many, moving fast. She killed her light and pressed herself into the shadows as voices filled the stairwell. She shouldn't be here. Calder wants this contained. No police. Elias Calder wasn't just connected. He was present. Active. Mara slipped out through a service corridor and emerged into the night just as generators roared back to life behind her, the sound swallowed by the city's endless noise. To anyone else, it would blend in, construction resuming, progress continuing. But Mara knew better now. The echoes weren't just memories. They were signals. And Jonah Reed had died because he'd heard one clearly enough to follow it. As Mara disappeared into the street, one truth settled hard in her chest. If she didn't expose the source of a sound soon, the city would keep burying its crimes beneath concrete and noise. And calling it progress. Top of form. Bottom of form. Echoes after the crime, Part 4. Mara didn't go home. Home was predictable, and predictability was dangerous now. Instead, she drove until the streets narrowed and the buildings leaned closer together, until the city sounded different. Less roar, more murmur. Old neighborhoods. Places redevelopment plans labeled underutilized. She parked beneath a flickering streetlight and shut off the engine. Silence rushed in, thick and uneasy. That's when she heard it again. The hum, fainter than at the construction site, but unmistakable. A low-frequency throb that settled in the bones rather than the ears. It drifted through the street like a ghost, passing through walls, through locked doors, through lives that had learned not to ask questions. Mara followed it to a community center scheduled for demolition. The windows were boarded up, graffiti layered over faded murals of smiling children and raised fists. Temporarily closed, the sign read. Temporary had become a permanent lie in the city. Inside, dust coated the floor, but footprints cut clean paths through it. Recent, purposeful. She moved carefully, gun drawn. In the basement, she found them, not machines this time, but people. A small group huddled around a table lit by battery lamps. Residents, activists, displaced families, faces worn down by years of shouting into the void. They froze when they saw her. "Police!" a woman asked. Fear and hope tangled in her voice. Mara lowered her weapon. "Detective, I'm not here for you." The woman exhaled shakily. "Jonah," said someone like you might come. That name again. Still opening doors. They showed her recordings. Phones pressed to walls at night. Audio files of vibrations rattling shelves, cracking foundations, triggering inspections that condemned buildings overnight. Residents forced out. Properties sold cheap. Calder's companies moving in days later. Weaponized sound. Legal on paper. Invisible to anyone not listening closely enough. We tried reporting it, a man said bitterly. Cities said we were imagining things. Mara copied everything. Every file. Every timestamp. Every trembling voice that proved the echoes were real. As she turned to leave, the woman stopped her. They're going to erase us, she said. Like they erased Jonah. Mara met her eyes. Not if the noise gets loud enough. Outside, sirens wailed, not police, not ambulances. Construction alarms. Progress, announcing itself again. Mara knew what came next wouldn't be clean. Calder had money, influence, silence on his side. But she had something stronger now. A chorus. And as she walked back into the city's restless pulse, the echoes followed her, no longer whispers, but a warning building toward a reckoning no amount of concrete could contain. Top of form. Bottom of form. Echoes after the crime. Part 5. The leak went live at 2:17 a.m. Mara watched the upload bar crawl across her laptop screen in a borrowed office above a closed print shop. The room smelled of ink and dust. Fitting, she thought, for a story the city had tried to erase. Audio files, permits, internal emails, video of vibrating walls and crumbling ceilings, layered together like a confession no one could interrupt. She didn't send it to the police first. She sent it everywhere else. Independent journalists, community outlets, international watchdogs, anyone who still believed that truth traveled faster when it wasn't filtered through power. By morning, the city woke up differently. Headlines didn't shout yet, they hummed. A low, persistent presence across feeds and radios. Residents report invisible weapon in redevelopment zones. Journalists' death linked to sound-based evictions. Who is Elias Calder? Calder's response came swift and polished. A press conference. A calm smile. Words like innovation, misinterpretation, coincidence. He dismissed Jonah Reed as tragically misguided. Mara stood at the back of the crowd, listening. She heard the crack in his voice when a reporter played one of the recordings live. The hum filled the plaza speakers, subtle, unsettling. People shifted uncomfortably. Some pressed hands to their ears. "You feel that?" someone whispered. Once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. By noon, inspectors shut down 3 sites. By evening, a council member resigned. Anonymous tips flooded in. Workers, contractors, engineers who had signed non-disclosure agreements and broken them the moment the sound gave them courage. Calder vanished before nightfall. But echoes don't need their source to keep traveling. At Jonah's memorial that weekend, the crowd was large and quiet. No speeches at first. Just people standing together, listening to the city breathe. When Mara finally stepped forward, she placed the recorder Jonah had left beside his photo. "It's still recording," she said softly. "So are we." The hum rolled through the streets beyond the park. Traffic, trains, voices, life. No longer a weapon, no longer hidden. An echo reclaimed. The crime was no longer just a crime. It was a warning heard too late, and a lesson learned just in time. End of Part 5. Echoes After the Crime, Part 6. The city didn't quiet down after Calder disappeared. If anything, it grew louder. Press briefings overlapping, protest chants colliding with jackhammers, arguments spilling out of council chambers and into the streets. Noise, honest noise, the kind that couldn't be engineered or controlled. Mara knew better than to believe the story was over. 3 days after the leak, she received a package. No return address. No postage, hand-delivered. Inside was a flash drive wrapped in yellowing newspaper and a single note. Echoes don't die. They migrate. The files on the drive were older than Jonah's investigation. Years older. Schematics, research proposals, private grants funneled through shell organizations. Calder hadn't invented the technology, he'd refined it, sold it, shared it. The list of cities made Mara's stomach tighten. This wasn't a scandal. It was a network. That night, she met with the same community group from the condemned center, joined now by journalists, engineers, and a former federal acoustics specialist who spoke in careful, frightened sentences. "You can't ban sound," the specialist said, "but you can expose intent, pattern, harm." Mara nodded. "Then we make the pattern undeniable." They worked in shifts. mapping complaints across cities, overlaying redevelopment timelines, matching Jonah's early notes with fresh testimonies. The hum appeared again and again, always just below legal thresholds, always followed by evacuations, sales, silence. By the end of the week, the story broke internationally. Governments denied involvement. Corporations promised audits. Investors pulled out quietly, loudly enough to be heard where it mattered. Mara stood on her balcony again, the same place where this had started. The city's soundscape had changed. Construction paused. Sirens gave way to voices. People talking, arguing, listening. Her phone buzzed. Not a threat this time. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for hearing us." Mara didn't reply. She didn't need to. She closed her eyes and let the noise wash over her, proof that the echoes were no longer trapped in the aftermath of a single crime. They had become evidence, and as long as someone was listening, no one would ever truly get away with burying the truth in silence again. Echoes After the Crime, Part 7. The trial began in a room designed to absorb sound. Thick walls, padded ceilings, microphones calibrated to capture every word while giving nothing back. Mara noticed at the moment she stepped inside, the absence of echo, the way footsteps died instantly. Someone, somewhere, still believed silence was safety. Elias Calder wasn't there. Instead, his name hovered over the courtroom like a frequency everyone felt but couldn't locate. Proxies testified, executives deflected, lawyers spoke in careful, bloodless phrases. The defense called the recordings coincidental interference. They called displacement urban inevitability. Mara waited. Then the prosecution played the map. Not one city, not one neighborhood. A constellation of sites spanning borders, years, administrations. As the visuals spread across the screen, a low sound crept into the room. Not added, not amplified. Just the raw audio from dozens of residents layered together. The hum returned. Jurors shifted. One covered her mouth. Another leaned forward, eyes narrowed, listening harder than he had to any testimony. Because this time, the sound had a shape. Witnesses followed. A former contractor who admitted adjusting frequencies. A city inspector who confessed to ignoring complaints because nothing looked broken. A journalist from another country who had buried the same story after receiving the same threats Jonah had. Each voice added weight. Each echo found its place. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered, not chanting, not shouting. They stood in deliberate quiet, holding up speakers that played the recordings at low volume. Not loud enough to disrupt, just loud enough to be undeniable. Calder was arrested 2 days later at a private airstrip, attempting to leave under a false name. The verdict took less than 6 hours. Guilty, on all counts that mattered. As the courtroom emptied, Mara lingered. She tapped her heel once against the floor. No sound came back to her. Good, she thought. Some places deserve to stay quiet. But outside, as the doors opened and the city rushed in, the noise surged. Relief, grief, celebration, unfinished arguments about what came next. Mara stepped into it willingly. The echoes after the crime had done their work. They had traveled, gathered, and returned as truth. Heard at last. Top of form. Bottom of form. Echoes After the Crime, Part 8. The city tried to move on. That was its oldest habit. Paint over scars, rename projects, replace memory with momentum. Construction resumed under new banners. Committees formed. Promises were made with microphones held close and voices carefully measured. Mara watched it all from a distance now. She had turned down promotions, press requests, a book deal she wasn't ready to write. Instead, she took a desk in a small, underfunded unit whose job description sounded harmless enough: long-term urban impact review. Listening work. Follow-up work. The kind that didn't make headlines. Jonah would have approved. One afternoon, while sorting through archive complaints long dismissed as non-credible, Mara found a familiar phrase scribbled in the margin of a scanned document. You can't bury sound. Different handwriting. Different year. The echo had started long before Jonah, and it would outlast them all. She began visiting neighborhoods again. Not as a detective this time, but as a witness. She listened to the way people spoke about their homes, the way voices softened when they talked about what had been taken, and sharpened when they talked about what they were rebuilding. In one block, a former construction site had become a park. Wind moved through new trees, leaves rustling in uneven rhythms. Children laughed. A vendor's radio crackled between stations. Organic noise. Uncontrolled. Alive. At Jonah's old apartment, the door frame was clean now. The scrap of paper was gone. But Mara could still see it there, in memory, like a watermark only she could hear. That night, she turned on Jonah's recorder one last time. It picked up everything, the hum of appliances, distant traffic, her own steady breathing. She didn't speak. She let the city speak for itself. When she finally shut it off, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. Crimes left evidence. Investigations found facts. But justice, Mara had learned, lived in the echoes, in what people remembered, repeated, and refused to let fade. And as long as the city made noise, the truth would never be alone again. Echoes After the Crime, Part 9. Years later, the city sounded different. Not quieter, never quieter, but clearer. Regulations had been rewritten, oversight embedded into projects the way steel hid inside concrete. Sound audits were no longer footnotes. They were required, public, recorded. Mara Kincaid was no longer a detective by title. She taught now. A narrow lecture hall. Hard seats. Old microphones that fed back if you weren't careful. She liked that about the room. It reminded her that sound demanded respect. On the first day of every term, she played a short, unlabeled recording. A low hum. Students shifted. Some frowned. One always raised a hand. Is something wrong with the speakers? Mara would shake her head. No. Something was wrong with how people listened. She told them about a journalist who followed a noise everyone else dismissed. About a city that mistook silence for peace. About how power preferred frequencies that stayed just below notice. Jonah Reed's name was in the textbooks now, usually in a footnote under civic accountability. Mara made sure to say it out loud. Names mattered. They carried echoes. After class, a student approached her, nervous, determined. I think something like this is happening where I'm from, she said quietly. It doesn't sound the same, but it feels familiar. Mara smiled just a little. Start recording, she said. And don't stop listening. That evening, Mara walked home through streets layered with life, music from open windows, engines, arguments, laughter. She paused at a crosswalk and closed her eyes. No hidden hum, no manufactured vibration, just the messy, human sound of a city that had learned, at least for now. As she crossed, her phone buzzed with an email subject line. Unusual complaints, archived but unresolved. Mara didn't sigh. She turned back toward the noise. Because echoes never truly ended. They waited for someone to hear them and choose to answer. Echoes After the Crime, Part 10. The recording began the same way it always did. Static. Breath. A city waking up. Mara sat alone in her office, an old recorder on the desk between her hands. The device was obsolete now, museum-worthy, some would say, but she trusted it. It didn't filter. It didn't optimize. It simply listened. Outside, rain tapped the windows in uneven rhythms. Footsteps passed. A distant horn complained. Somewhere, laughter rose and fell. No hum. She pressed stop and labeled the file with the date. Another day accounted for. Another echo preserved. On the wall behind her hung a map, not of crimes, but of answers. Neighborhoods that had pushed back. Laws rewritten because someone spoke up. Students who had sent messages years later saying, I heard it. You were right. Jonah Reed's recorder sat beside hers now, its casing worn smooth by time. She had finally donated the rest of his files to the city archive, but this one she kept. Not as evidence, as memory. A knock came at the door. A young investigator stepped in, hesitant. Professor Kincaid, we've got something. It's subtle. Might be nothing. Mara stood, already reaching for her coat. Nothing usually is, she said, until someone listens long enough. They stepped out together into the corridor, their footsteps overlapping, creating a brief, imperfect echo before the sound was swallowed by the building. The city waited beyond the doors, unfinished, restless, alive. And somewhere within its endless noise, the truth was still speaking. Not loudly, not all at once, but clearly enough for those willing to hear it. End of echoes after the crime. Bottom of form.